Hello guys and welcome back. We got another special video in store here reacting to the Athletics 2020 NHL redraft. A few days ago we went over the Athletics 2019 NHL redraft, which had some huge surprises, players like Trevor Zegras over Cole Caulfield. But I've heard that this 2020 redraft by the Athletic is absolutely wild. And especially with a lot of the top end prospects in the 2020 NHL draft not really working out, this ranking could get wild. So make sure you watch till the end as we go through the complete rankings, and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this all throughout the year, because you won't want to miss a thing. And here we have it, the Athletics 2020 redraft, and the headline says, redrafting the NHL class of 2020, Stutzle goes number 1 and Alexander Nikishin rises dramatically. Okay, so already a lot to digest there, but Nikishin rising drastically, I'm kind of interested to see if he's maybe in the top 15, top 10, we'll see. Now, right after the headline, Corey probably has some interesting notes here. The 2020 NHL draft is the third one we're looking back on this week. It's a class that saw their draft season abruptly end due to COVID. Time has significantly altered the way we look at this group, though. A few years later, the number 1 and number 2 picks are not in the current top 5, and a third round pick has skyrocketed right to the top. I like this drama. Now let's get started with this Corey Prominent redraft of the 2020 NHL draft class, and coming in at number 1, as the article does mention, with the first NHL player in the redraft, the only player in the elite NHL tier, that is Tim Stützle, coming in first overall. Now, this is not surprising whatsoever, as Corey Proman mentions, one of the best players in the young players in the NHL currently, as he ticks every box. We've seen with Tim Stützle year after year that compounding growth, not just with the point totals and the production, but with the overall game, how much better he's gotten defensively. This is a player that continues to be more mature, continues to prove how good his skating and that skill set was from day one, and unlike some other prospects, has actually gotten an opportunity from day one. And that top 6 time that Stützle was able to get right off the bat has proved to be so influential for his career. Not only has he gotten that opportunity, though, he's also thrived with it, and we've seen just how elite he's been. All in all, you can't really argue anybody else for that true first overall spot, at least not to me. But what's interesting here is that Stützle is the only player here in tier 1, so we'll go on to tier 2 as the bubble NHL All-Stars and top of the lineup players. And coming up in number 2, we have 3 different guys. Jake Sanderson coming 2nd overall, Anton Lundell 3rd overall, and Alexander Nikishin from 69 to 4th overall. Now, this is kind of wild to me. I didn't really disagree with Jake Sanderson 2nd overall with what we've seen so far out of all these players. You could even have Jake Sanderson 1st overall. I mean, if we're talking about the only players that could maybe rival Tim Stützle's spot number 1, it's another Ottawa Senator in Sandy. But having him 2nd overall does make sense with what he's been able to show so far. He's having an incredible season, looking like one of the best defensemen in the league already, because of course. So having him go from number 5 to number 2, you don't hate that whatsoever. But then we go into the next picks here, Anton Lundell being 3rd overall. That's interesting. Corey Proman says that Anton Lundell doesn't have great feet, but he's super smart and competitive and was a contributor to Florida's Stanley Cup final run this past spring. So those things are true. Lundell, of course, with his skating isn't super high end, but we've seen so far just how well he's matured into the NHL game. Unfortunately, still not getting really the opportunity he deserves in Florida. I think he can handle top 6 minutes, yet he hasn't really been able to get that. I think once he does, though, he will be a top 5 player in this draft for sure. I've always been a Lundell trooper, though, and it's good to see him this high, even though number 3 might be a little bit much for me, but you can still go with it. But going on to number 4 with Alexander Nikishin, of course, Carolina Hurricanes 3rd round pick, jumping all the way to 4th overall without even playing an NHL game yet. But Corey Pronman mentions Alexander Nikishin is the one who will spark some debate. I realize he has played 0 NHL games, but if he played in the NHL tomorrow, I think he would change the lineup. He is big, mobile, highly physical defenseman, makes a lot of offensive plays. He has a lot of potential and has been a star in the KHL already. You can see over these past few years, the point production he's had in the KHL at 22 years old. Last year, 55 points in 65 games. This year, right where he left off, great point production still. As Corey Proman does mention, he loves to make huge hits. He's super mobile with his skating, and we'll see how much of the offense does carry over to the NHL level. I do think that Slapper absolutely could, and there could be some good power play potential, but so far he's shown great things in the KHL, and we'll see how that carries over. Number 4 might be a little bit high for me, playing no NHL games yet, but he is getting closer to reaching that Kirill Kaprizov tier to me, where he might not have played an NHL game yet, but he is going to be a sure bet, that's for sure. But let's keep going here into tier 3, top of the lineup players after 4th overall. And let's slide through, and we have quite a few players in this tier. Okay, Lucas Raymond 5th, Jack Quinn 6th, Dawson Mercer 7th, Alexis Lafreniere going from 1st to 8th. Then you have Quinton Byfield number 9, Jamie Drysdale at 10, and then Seth Jarvis rounding out the top 11 in a redraft here. Now, this one's quite interesting to me, having Lucas Raymond 5th overall to start things out. We've seen, of course, what he's been able to prove in the past, but he's kind of been an inconsistent player, unfortunately, and this year hasn't gone off to the greatest start point production-wise, but I do like still having him as high as they do. Of course, Jack Quinn at 6th overall last year, fantastic season with Buffalo. We'll see how much he's able to carry over onto it this year, if there's able to be some consistency. If we're just going on last year, though, he definitely deserves to rise into that top 10 for sure. Just proves so much, already being such an electric player for the Sabres. And number 7, I love having Dawson Mercer this high. I was relatively high on him in the 2020 rankings, but he's a player that showed more of a pro game and feistiness than even I saw back in his draft year, but transitioned beautifully onto the pro game. Love to see him here at number 7. Absolute stud for the Devils. Then you got Alexis Lafreniere at number 8, which I'm kind of surprised he's even this high. I see people having a Lafreniere outside a top 10 in a redraft, and I think it's still a little bit too early for that just because of the lack of opportunity. And so far, he's looked better this season, even if after that first game, the points haven't really come for him. But we'll see if he's able to still be a top 10 prospect when it's all said and done. I would say so. Probably, though, in that second half of the top 10, unfortunately. Then you got Quinton Byfield at number 9, which to me, I think is just too low for him. I would have him above Lafreniere at this point for me. Of course, we always knew that Byfield was going to be a lot more of a slow burn than Lafreniere because of the size and center position and how much longer that takes to really adjust to the NHL level. But to me, if you take away the points even, he has looked a lot more established this year, and he's a player that looks really solid. The analytics love him right now. Expected goals for, he's been great so far on that top tier. And to me with Byfield, he's a player that's starting to adjust more and more quickly, and I think those points will come. Having him 9th overall with the potential he still has, I think is definitely low for me. Then you have Jimmy Drysdale at number 10, which because of the injuries, I could absolutely see having him this low. When he has played, though, he's looked incredible on offense, and alongside Zellweger and Tukov in the future, it's going to be absolutely nasty. There might not be enough power play time for all 3 of those guys, unfortunately. But he's definitely a guy that once he gets actually healthy, I could see being a lot higher in this ranking, potentially above Lafreniere as well. Then you got Seth Jarvis 11th, and I was always high on Seth Jarvis. I was especially high on him in his draft year, and he comes in 11th in this redraft. To me, I think you could even have, you could make the case for having Jarvis higher, honestly. With what Jarvis has shown in his career so far, obviously this season, a hot start offensively, 7 points in 6 games, 4 goals, but 86 points in 156 games for the Canes. He has already become such a mature player for the Hurricanes, already fits so well into that system and has given them some offensive pop that they needed. I love Seth Jarvis though, and to me, he would be top 10. He is that good, has consistently shown to be that good. Also, come on, look at those playoff stats. 8 points in 14 games in 2022, and then 10 points in 15 games in 2023. Genuinely one of the Canes' best playoff performers the past couple of years. Now going on to tier 4, the bubble top and middle of the lineup player quality starting goaltender tier. Now there's already a picture of JJ Peterka, so I think we kind of got a little bit spoiled here. But let's slide through, go on to the next crop of players. Okay. Going on to 12 through 19, Kaiden Guhle rising from 16 to 12, Cole Perfetti going to 13, Lukas Reichel at 14, Marco Rossi at 15, Shakir Mukhamadullin at 16, Yaroslav Askarov at 17, John Jason Peterka at 18, and Braden Schneider rounding up the top 19, where he was drafted originally at 19th overall. Now, this is a fascinating tier for me. First, you got Kaiden Guhle, who rises 4 spots. I think that's pretty acceptable. I think that'll be around where I would have it, maybe a little bit lower, but to me with Kaiden Guhle, he has already shown a lot more offensive pop than what we saw in his draft year. I think there was a lot of dump outs, a lot of just lack of creativity with him. And I think we've seen a big boost in his confidence, a big boost in what he can do. And obviously the NHL level, when he has been healthy, he's looked pretty great. Unfortunately, just like Drysdale, health issues have knocked him back quite a bit. But so far, he looks like a quality top 4D for the future for the Habs. And that is great to see at that 16th spot. But here we go into number 13 and having Cole Perfetti at that 13th overall spot. This to me, I just can't agree with. I think he's been pretty consistently solid when he has played with the Jets in his NHL career so far, and we're seeing the smarts and we're seeing the consistency in his game show through. Dropping him 3 spots, I don't know about that. He hasn't gotten to an insane start this year, but I think when he has been healthy, he's been a consistent scorer, and the defensive game has been a huge improvement from his draft year to now. To me, that's one of the biggest parts of Cole Perfetti's game that has improved, and to me, I think once he eventually gets that scoring going, that especially the goal scoring, I think he's going to be a top 10 player in this draft. Could absolutely see that from him. Now, having Lukas Reichel at 14th overall, love to see it. Reichel hasn't had the greatest start this year. You can see that he's turning that page, though, and I think for Chicago, he is going to be a great top 6 winger. Now, maybe having him 14th, maybe a little bit high for me, but I love Lukas Reichel. I love what the progression he's shown in his game over the past few years. I was always pretty high on him around that 17th spot where he was drafted, where I had him in my rankings. A lot more people had him more in the 20s, the mid-20s, I remember back then, but Reichel has shown some great things, and hopefully he'll be a perfect line mate for Bedard in the future. Now, I'm kind of surprised to only see Marco Rossi at 15th overall, but so far he has looked good for Minnesota in, again, another depth role. I think once he gets more opportunity, though, he will become a top 6 center soon. I really hope to see that from him because his road, his recovery has been such an inspiration. The fact that he's even playing in the NHL right now, it's crazy, but it's good to see Marco Rossi not dropping too much because I don't want to give up on him yet. Then you got Shakir Mukhamadullin here at the 16th overall spot. Not where I would have him personally. It's developing as I would say, a solid offensive D. Going to be good on the power play. Besides that, though, still very rangy. I still have some big defensive question marks, but whatever floats your boat. Then you go to number 17, and you got Yaroslav Askarov, and he drops him quite a bit, 6 spots. I personally am not ready to give up on him whatsoever. The big problem becomes he's in Nashville's system, and UC Charles is not going anywhere, which leaves Askarov in a tough position. Still, though, starting this year off in a 9-11 save percentage in 2 games in the AHL, he's looking solid. He's looking like still one of the best goalie prospects in the NHL, and to me, I would still probably rank him inside the top 15. Now going on to number 18, another player that I was pretty high on, who I was just going crazy over in the second round, eventually got picked by the Sabres 34th overall, and that is JJ Peterka, who so far has been a great player for the Sabres. Last year, just like Jack Quinn, was a fantastic rookie, and that overall game was able to show some great things too. The consistency in his game at such a young age was really inspiring, and this year we've seen him being solid, being one of the better Sabres forwards, although that Sabres forward lineup isn't looking very good right now. But still, Peterka and the Sabres will likely be able to turn that page, and I love seeing him inside the top 20. He has proved so many things since he was drafted, and it's good to see him this high. Another German stud. Then you go on to Braden Schneider at the 19th overall spot, and even though I was a lot lower on Schneider, he's developed into what I thought he would be, maybe a lot further ahead than I thought he would, but to me, as a bottom pair defensive physical D-man, that's what we've seen Braden Schneider be. I'm not sure how much more he can go above that, but so far, he's been as advertised for New York. Now moving on to tier 5, middle of the lineup players and starting goaltenders, and here we go on to 20 and above here, and this is a humongous tier. Holy shnikes. You got Dylan Holloway starting things off at 20. Greg, you got Zari, Wallander, Faber, Kuzninov, Evangelista, Holtz, Barron, Cooley, Neighbors, Shinnikov, Borlo, Kaiser, Clevin, Farrell, Levi, Maverick, Borg, Levi at 36? That's bold, folks. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about here. Holloway dropping from 14 to 20, that makes sense at this stage in his career. He hasn't been able to fully break out. Really, Greg at 21st overall, I don't hate that. Looking like a solid bottom 6 center for them. Kzdari at 22nd, I'm surprised that he would jump up 2 spots. He's looked pretty good in the Flame system, but again, there's another guy that hasn't made that big next step yet. William Wallander at the same position, 23rd from 32. I like Wallander a lot, but we'll see how much he's able to get to that ranking. Brock Faber at 24, a player that has risen so much since he was drafted for me. I don't really have him on my radar at all back in the 2020 draft, but since then has gotten so much better year over year and is right now looking like a Calder candidate for Minnesota. Then you got Marat Kuzninov, who's looking pretty good in the KHL these past couple of years, looking good for Sochi as well. Luke Evangelista, I would honestly have higher than this. He's a player that I had as a Calder candidate. It hasn't quite worked out points-wise this year yet, but I think he will start turning a page like he was great in the second half last year. Then you got Alexander Holtz at 27, around this range. I don't hate, though. I do think he's looked pretty solid for New Jersey, even though the points haven't come yet. You got Justin Barron at 28. I just don't see this. I mean, Justin Barron has been okay for the Habs, but to me is not going to be a difference maker. Will Cooley going from 60 to 29. I'm willing to eat socks on this one. Will Cooley has proved me wrong in so many ways. The translatability of his offense has come a long way. That fierce competitive nature, though, has always been there, and it's been at the best level it's always been at the NHL so far. Good to see from him. Now, we got some interesting ones coming up here. Of course, Shinikava dropping a little bit still from that 21st overall pick. Borderlow being around that spot doesn't really surprise me. Tyler Clevin going up quite a bit. Sean Farrell going quite a bit is quite good to see. Farrell, of course, has been a great pick from day one, and it's good to see him progressing well with Laval, with Joshua Waugh. Those two have been insane together. But then we go on to the weirdest one. All right, this is crazy. Devon Levi at that 36th overall pick. Now, You guys know with Levi that I didn't predict him as one of my top 3 Calder candidates so far. And of course, this year hasn't been the greatest start for him. He's been okay, but it hasn't been that elite goaltender that Buffalo has really needed to get them to a fantastic record or anything. And of course, he is now get a little bit banged up, which of course, I said for Buffalo that their lack of goaltending depth was going to haunt them. And so far, it's haunted Levi. But having him 36, I mean, any Levi hater would tell you that he's better than that. I mean, having a player like Tyler Klevin over Levi is insane to me. I mean, I'm sorry. A player like Borderlo, a player like Shinnikov over Levi. Let's stop this now. I'm just surprised that you have a player like Askarov is still inside the top 20 who is yet to have a full stint in the NHL over a player like Levi who is shown to do so many great things and is going to be an NHL star in the future. I'm not very optimistic in it being at a great level this year, but he will be one of the best goaltenders in the NHL level over these next few seasons. And to have him at 36, man, I mean, sure, he's already risen up quite a bit from a 7th overall pick, but probably not enough. And then you got Maverick Bourque at the 37th overall spot. I wouldn't underrate him as much as they do here. He's looked great at the AHL level so far this year, and he's a player that I could see by the trade deadline maybe being on the Stars' bottom 6. Now, it's interesting, Corey Palmini, he says with Levi and Sean Farrell that they are both undersized players who don't have elite physical traits. Levi is a super smart goaltender. How their games translate to the NHL is to be determined, but they've shown over the last few years they have a good chance of making it. I mean, to me, I think that's underrating Levi. It's not just a good chance. It's a pretty perfect chance. And again, even though I'm pessimistic on this year, he will be great for Buffalo. But now let's go into tier 6, projected to play NHL games. And this isn't just some NHL games. This is projected to be NHL players coming up in this next tier. We go on to 38. We have a pretty big tier here from 38 on to 59. Now, after the tier 5 range, we're just going to go through the players that I think are interesting in their rankings. We're not going to go through every single player, but just the guys that I find fascinating. First up, Jeremy Poirier at 38th overall. I love to see this. I was a huge Jeremy Poirier fan back in his draft year, and there was a lot of the questions over how he would translate his game from the Q to the pros, but so far he's been unreal for the Calgary Flames AHL team, and I think he's a player that in an offensive role will have some great things in a middle pair potentially for Calgary. Tyson Forster going from 23 to 39. I mean, Forster this low is surprising to me. He's progressed pretty well and is already, of course, on the Flyers NHL team. To me, he's a guy that will be a solid power play scorer, though, in the future. Having him this low is pretty shocking. But here's where we get a little bit weird. At 41, he has Nils Aman, who looked pretty good for the Canucks last year in a depth role, but that's pretty much all he'll be. He'll be 24 this next February, and right now is in the AHL. Having him above Mason Lowry at this point, that's pretty crazy. Lowry almost made the Bruins defense, will likely make it next year, and is like one of the most underrated D prospects in the league. Having him on over him, no. I also want to shout out Golden Knights D Lucas Cormier, who's looking like a great pick with that 68th overall pick back in 2020. Progressing well, the offense continue to get better and better over the years, and in the AHL, he's been fantastic. Another potential D for the Vegas Golden Knights once they graduate a couple of guys. He could be on a middle pair someday. A couple of interesting names here. William Dufour coming in at 46th overall. He's progressed amazingly as well. Another Q guy that's progressed pretty well from this draft. Could be a middle 6 option for the Islanders. Brendan Brisson going from 29 to 47. I mean, I would have him less than 29 at this point, but still, he's looking like a great AHL scorer, and once he does take the next step, once Vegas has an opportunity for him, I think he will thrive pretty decently on the power play, but having him 47, that is interesting. Let's keep going, though. I love to see Nikishin inside the top 50. He has looked great for the San Jose Barracuda, and I think he's another guy that could step maybe in the second half of this year for the Sharks, put him some good offense in that middle 6. Love to see him get that type of opportunity. Some more interesting names here, though. Jean-Luc Foudy at 52. I would honestly have a little bit higher. He has progressed so well, and in the AHL has already gotten comfortable, which is good to see. You also got players like Isaac Phillips, who have risen a ton since their draft year. Good to see him. Alex Lafreniere at 55th. Another player I would have a little bit higher. He was extremely close to being a big impact player for the Kings this year. I think his time will come. He looked amazing in preseason and training camps. He is going to be a really interesting middle 6 guy. You also have Brandon Coe ending off this year at 59th overall. I was super high on him back in his draft year as well. Looking great for the San Jose Barracuda this year. 4 points in 4 games. He's another guy just, of course, like Nikishin, who I can see as a second half call-up for the Sharks. Bring in some offense after they maybe traded a couple of pieces at the trade deadline. Coe could be one of those guys next in line. Then we go into tier 7, having a chance to play NHL games. And this one is always interesting to me because there are a few players here that I don't think just have a chance, but have some really good chances chances of being NHL players. First, you have Emil Andre at 60th overall, and he's already playing NHL games for the Flyers this year. Is going to look like a middle pairing impact offensive D for them, looking pretty solid and progressing pretty solidly. Tristan Robertson 61, I like having him. I would have maybe a little bit higher than this. I still do like Tristan Robertson quite a bit. Another guy on the San Jose Barracuda team that has a lot of potential there. Players like Helge Grans, Cross Hannes, that doesn't really surprise me too much. But then we have some weird underrating of goaltenders. Levi Marilainen at 81st overall, dropping 10 spots. I'm not really sure about that. He's looked good in the ECHL, the AHL. He's looking like a solid young goaltender. Not one of the best goaltending prospects, but still for the Sens could be a fringe guy. You also got Drew Commesso, 88th, dropping from 46 to 88. I don't really see this at all. He's looked great for Boston University in the NCAA, and this year is going off to a great start in the AHL too. 88th, I don't see that at all. Having players like Damon Hunt and Ronnie Hervinen and Vasily Ponomarev, I don't know. I think Drew Commesso is pretty underrated here. And then you have the last player in the redraft with Joel Blomqvist coming here at 96th overall. He was a 52nd overall pick by the Penguins. Having him this low to me is also pretty crazy. He's gotten off to a great start in the AHL this year. Looked solid in the Liga last season. Is looking like a pretty decent goaltending prospect. Could be a fringe guy as well for the Penguins. Having him this low, so far the goaltending rankings have been way off in this entire redraft. But that is the Athletics 2020 NHL redraft. Let us know down below what you guys think about this entire ranking. What do you guys agree? What do you guys disagree with it? And of course, let us know what your redraft for the 2020 NHL draft would look like. Let us know all your thoughts down below. Of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you are new for more ranking content just like this that you do not want to miss. And of course, hit that like button if you enjoyed today's redraft ranking reaction video. And of course, make sure you share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online. Get the 2020 redraft out to them, and make sure you click on this card for all of my hockey prospect content right in one playlist. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and goodbye.